Hey, what's up? Hello, everyone. Welcome into Fantasy Filmball, the show where we turn movies into sports and sports into something we don't talk about here. My name is Matt.
And my name is Dyl. We're here with our first, real predictions for the Golden Globes all season long.
Yes,
Super
sir.
interesting stuff. These nominations come out on Monday, so we're a little early, about a week or so. Some stuff could change, but just to give y'all all a timestamp, basically. Gotham's happened last night. New York Film Critics Circle happened this morning. The awards season is changing each and every day. So if we reference something that may be out of date by the time you're watching this video or by the time this video gets uploaded live, that is the reason why.
Well, I'm excited that this is our first final predictions of something. That's always an exciting time in the season where we're not speculating, we are locking things in. We are saying, this is what we think is happening, and these are our official predictions. Everything else is fake until it's official. So this is the official ones, and I'm stoked to get rolling. So, Dylan, where do you think we should start?
Everyone always starts in Best Motion Picture Drama, but I feel like this year the comedy categories is where all the fun stuff is at. So why don't we start off with Best Film, Musical, or Comedy?
Let's hit it. And my hot take here is I think Anora is going to lose this category because I believe Emilia Perez will win Best Comedy Picture here. But Anora is also safe. I think there's 4 films that we can say are safe in Best Comedy Musical Picture. Let me know what you think about this, Dylan. Emilia Perez, Anora, Wicked, A Real Pain. Those are all safe.
I would totally agree with that as well. I think that you can make a case for 3 of these films to win the category, but we're not really talking about wins here. We are just talking about nominations, so I fully agree. Anora, Wicked, Emilia Perez, A Real Pain, lock them in.
Lock them in. Now, for my number 5 slot, I've got Challengers, which I feel like is going to do really well here. I think it's going to do really well at the Critics' Choice. I feel like this is one that's going to pop up a lot through the early season. So Challengers feels really good to me. And if we are going to see a Challengers resurgence eventually happen, it needs to show up here. Needs to.
Challengers is also my number 5 as well. Yeah, with this new Globes makeup, obviously it does not just mean every international contender immediately jumps into the lineup. It just means that they're more receptive and they're more open to doing what some people may call cooler type nominations. And that's kind of why I do have The Substance at my number 6. If this was old Globes, I probably would have Substance blanking overall. It just doesn't seem like a film the old Globes would go for. But we have a new voting body here, and this is something that we had this whole conversation, not here on the channel, but over in our Discord with some of our server members. Should Substance go drama? Should it go comedy? And I always thought the comedy section had a much better avenue and a much better path for it.
So I would like to have The Substance in my top 6. I just think that makes that top 6 look too easy, right? Having Emilia Perez, Anora, Wicked, A Real Pain, Challengers, The Substance, that is exactly what it should be. That makes so much sense. And that's why I am deviating from The Substance.
Yeah.
I don't think it's happening. I instead have Hitman as my final slot here. So I feel like this is a movie that is going to resonate very well with the Globes. Glenn Powell is likely to be our actor comedy winner, right? We can't really dispute that at this point. We'll talk about that lineup later. But there you go. He's winning that category. So it makes sense. There's an avenue. They're seeing the movie, hopefully. We could imagine. And this film just seems like it has that appeal with a group like this. A group of press will probably really like this movie specifically. Now, one other film I'm really considering here is Kneecap. I could absolutely see Kneecap slide its way into that last slot as like a whoa shocker. In a way, I could see Kneecap being like the Fallen Leaves of this year, where it gets a random acting nomination or just a random spot somewhere that we don't expect it to. Now, of course, Fallen Leaves did not get into Comedy Picture last year, and I don't see Kneecap making it in this year, but I do think it's one to watch out for as a random pop-up that might just peek its head in.
And I think the 6th slot could be very interesting in this category as well. You've already mentioned Hitman. I've talked about Substance. And I think the interesting thing with this category is how some of the mighty contenders that we assumed were near locks in this category early on in the season are now basically non-contenders whatsoever. There's Saturday Night, there's Joker Folie à Deux, there's Night Bitch, 3 films that at one point people considered to win their respective acting categories. Now you can make a solid case for not even being top 10 in the category. And I guess the 2 other films I really want to propose as potential spoilers in here. The first one would be Kinds of Kindness. Currently,
Yes.
I do not have it in, but there was a point I had this in my 6. I had it winning comedy actor, and I think that if Jesse Plemons is the potential winner for comedy actor, we could see Kinds of Kindness surprise and shock here in the 6th slot, knocking out either Substance or maybe even knocking out something like Challengers. The other film I guess I want to throw a shout to, and it's something I don't think the Globes are on the right path to at this moment, but maybe a few years down the line we could eventually see an animated film get in. But The Wild Robot is here. It is something that the Globes could do, as I wouldn't say it would be a shocking nomination, but it would be the first time ever an animated film has gotten into Best Film Musical Comedy or Best Film Drama, and there's a great opportunity to do it here. I just don't think that film is currently as strong as it would need to be to get that nomination.
So let's move on to Drama Picture, where the race for the nomination feels much, much more stacked, but the race for the win is a little bit flimsy here. At the moment, I would say that our locks for the category have to be Conclave, The Brutalist, Dune Part 2, and Sing Sing. What do you think about those 4?
But yes, this drama category I think is very similar to the one on the other side. Top 4 seems pretty locked in. And I may go as far to say, to be a little controversial, the 5th slot, at least to me, seems pretty solid for Complete Unknown if we're considering the current reception to it and the buzz coming out that to me is in fact potentially win competitive.
That's not what I thought slot 5 would be, because in my mind, Nickel Boys would be my number 5. I think Nickel Boys is a borderline lock here, especially knowing how artsy they lean, knowing that last year they went for both Zone of Interest and Anatomy of a Fall in Best Drama. Nickel Boys seems like a shoo-in for the category. Meanwhile, I'm on the fence about whether a Complete Unknown makes it in or whether it's The Room Next Door. Currently, I'm going with a Complete Unknown as my last slot, but I'm not sure about that because this is not as American, not as basic a body as we've seen in the past with the Globes. Old Globes, a Complete Unknown is top 3, right? The new Globes, we haven't seen how they react to a completely average music biopic like
We saw with
a Complete
Elvis.
Unknown. But I don't think that's the same body. Like they've still changed even between 2022 and 2023, right? Like the body that did Zone of Interest and Anatomy of a Fall last year was updated from 2022. So yes, they did go for Elvis, but I don't know. I think last year was a real turning point. So at this point, I'm not sure. I do predict a Complete Unknown, but I can see a world where The Room Next Door sneaks in and completely snubs it.
I completely agree with that as well. I think that Nickel Boys, A Complete Unknown, and Room Next Door are vying for these last 2 spots. I've seen people out there say Gladiator 2. I've seen people say Blitz.
No.
To me, that's very wrong. But for these
New
3
Globes.
films, and then I guess just for me, these last 3 films, it just comes down to where will the other nominations come from? At least for me, I'm still running with this. Timmy is going to receive love from the industry and lead actor. If I have him winning lead actor here, I kind of need to have his movie in. Nickel Boys is something I could see get into director. I could see getting into screenplay. Same thing with Room Next Door. In fact, I think I have them both in screenplay currently. So it's just hard to find the space here just because the issue with having 6 in the category is you can have more films in, but it also means you really have to decide what is really number 6 and what is really number 7. Because in years past, if this was just a top 5 here, at least to me, the 5 would seem pretty easy. Now when we have that 6 slot, it's like, which one do I put in?
It is true. The 6th slot gives a lot of question marks. Now, I want to put forward a couple of potentials. Like you said, Gladiator 2, people are throwing out. I don't think that's happening here. That's not Globesy. Blitz is the same way. I don't think that's Globes material in the modern era. Maybe 5 years ago, Globes would eat this up. Not right now. But if we want to look at last year, Anatomy of a Fall, Zone of Interest, I could see a world where Seed of the Sacred Fig or All We Imagine Is Light can slide into a special surprise slot in Drama Picture. And the other one to put forward, because we have to keep in mind the Golden Globes voters are journalists. They are in broadcast, they are in TV, they are in journalism, just in general. September 5 could be a big shocker here.
That's going to bring us over to the Best Director category. And I feel like this is now the first time inside this video where you can make a case for a consensus top 4, top 6, but in reality, I think it is kind of open, at least especially for those bottom 3 slots here at the Globes. But my top 6, I feel like could be pretty agreed upon from top to bottom. It is Denis Villeneuve, Sean Baker, Jacques Audiard, Brady Corbet, Ramel Ross, Edward Berger. No particular order, just those 6.
Once again, I'm here telling you, no, sorry, I don't buy Denis Villeneuve. I have him missing for John M. Chu at the moment. So, but everything else I've got the same. I've got Jacques Audiard, I've got Brady Corbet, I've got Sean Baker, Edward Berger, Ramel Ross, and then John M. Chu. So I think in my mind, as Wicked grows bigger and bigger and bigger, Denis Villeneuve's reason to be in a category of directors gets smaller and smaller and smaller. I think that John M. Chu is going to eat away at some of his votes. Neither of them may end up getting in end of the day for the Oscar, but I think that they have the same demographic that's going to be voting for them, which is people who appreciate blockbuster spectacle filmmaking. At the moment, John M. Chu, he's the movie of the moment, and I see Dune Part 2 as being a thing of the past.
At least for me, my top 6, I feel pretty good about, but as we know with the Globes each and every year, never expect the expected. So if someone were to miss there, Chu would be my alternative, and then right after him would be Pedro Almodovar for Room Next Door. But again, it really just comes down to Nickel Boy's Room Next Door. What is the 5? What is the 6? What is the 7? If they're both in drama, I would lead to believe that they're both in director. If one misses out on drama, I obviously think that one would miss out on director. And if they both somehow miss out on drama, then I could see them both potentially even blanking overall.
Honestly, I think I would agree. If Room Next Door is in drama, I see it being in director as well. I also want to mention, if Coralie Farjad makes a directing lineup anywhere, it would be here at the Globes.
With that being said, let's dive over to Best Film Screenplay. And at least for me, this category is very weird this year. Currently, I have 5 adapteds and 1 original in my 6, but I am fully open to switching that. Whoa. I want to hear Matt's case for what his 6 are at the moment.
That's great. I got 3 and 3. So right now, I think that we can agree on 2 things being locks here. Only 2 feel like locks. Everything else has changed. That's Nora and Conclave.
I would
Those
agree.
are the only 2 that I think are solid. But following that, my lineup is A Real Pain, which I think this is just a big deal for screenplay everywhere. Despite my hangups on the movie, Globes will go for it in screenplay. They will go for it in supporting actor. They will go for it in actor. They will go for it in picture. So this is a really solid screenplay to me. Then I've got Sing Sing, which just makes sense, especially if we're thinking of this as a potential adapted screenplay winner if Conclave is to slip at all. I've also got The Brutalist here. We've seen them go for this type of movie in the screenplay category in the past. If I'm not mistaken, they did Killers of the Flower Moon screenplay last year, right? Even when the Oscars missed it. So those are the top 5. I feel really good about that top 5. Even though I only think Nora and Conclave are locked, that top 5 I feel strong about. Number 6, I'm going with Challengers. And the reason here, this just feels like a screenplay movie. We both believe the Globes are going to be higher on this than the Oscars are. Globes, Critics' Choice, that's where Challengers is going to do the best. And Challengers is a big writing movie. When I look down the list at some of the other films I'm considering, Dune Part 2, Nickel Boys, The Substance, they're not films that scream screenplay in the same way. People are going to yell at me for that because The Substance won screenplay at Cannes, but I don't think that matters. It's not as writery a movie as something like Challengers or A Real Pain is, which are in my lineup. And so even though a film like Nickel Boys or Dune Part 2, I might think are stronger in their picture category than Challengers is, I just feel like Challengers makes sense for a writing slot.
So here is my question for you. Currently, Conclave, Anora, Sing Sing, they're in my lineup. I'm not really going to budge on those. Brutalist and Real Pain are two from your lineup I currently don't have in mind, but I would like to make room for them. So in your opinion, between Nickel Boys, Room Next Door, Dune Part 2, which one should I cut?
The tricky thing with all of those, I mean, Dune Part 2, I've kept saying my argument over and over against it in screenplay categories is that it's almost entirely action. Movies like that don't need screenplay nominations. We saw with something like Mad Max Fury Road. Very different movies, but the same premise sort of still applies in my mind. And while, yes, it's very competitive for a nomination at the Oscars, the Golden Globes only have 6 slots, right? So that's one that can easily pop out of that list. Nickel Boys is another one where it's not about the writing, it's not about the screenplay, it's about the vision behind it, how it's shot. And that's another reason why I'm not certain that'll make it into a Globe screenplay lineup. Like last year, they didn't go for Zone of Interest in this category, right? And the script's not very similar because this has more of a linear story to it. But again, it's so much more about the filmmaking than it is about the writing.
Those are all great points, and I think I will have to agree with you and boot out Nickel Boys for A Real Pain. It's just now, do I boot out Dune for Brutalist? Because my biggest thing for Dune is, while I don't think it is win competitive at the Oscars, I feel like this will be one, just like the first film, that continuously shows up throughout award season, and people will continue to question it. Why is it here? And it's just a mainstay throughout the season, just due to what went into the script. Just the biggest thing against Dune Part 2 that Dune Part 1 had in its favor is obviously who is on the screenwriter credit. Will, in retrospect, Eric Roth's name being there being the main reason why Dune Part 1 succeeded in these screenplay categories all season long, or was it due to the film and the source material of adapting? So I think I'll hedge my bets there, and I'll keep Dune in, but I'll take out Nickel Boy. So I'll bring in one more of the conventional picks, while also keeping one more that I feel very confident and passionate about.
So let's move on to the next category here, which is Actress Drama. Now, I want to pitch a bit of a wild winner for this category. I know we're not talking winners, but I want to talk winners because I don't think Angelina Jolie wins this category.
I agree.
We just had Marianne Jean-Baptiste just won the New York Film Critics Circle for Best Actress, and I think she carries that through to the Golden Globes and takes this prize. So right now, I have 2 people in Best Actress Drama that I think are locks. Marianne Jean-Baptiste and Angelina Jolie. Those are the only 2 I feel like are locks. I think everything else is switcherooable.
And at least for me, I currently have 2 locks as well. Mine would be one of the same as yours, being Angelina Jolie, and the other one would be Saoirse Ronan for The Outrun. I know this film came out and didn't do much at the box office, but was this film ever going to be a box office hit? No. Sony Picture Classics has had her on the campaign trail hard and heavy, and even if she is more, maybe she is not real for the Oscar, she's going to get on that Globe. She's going to get on that BAFTA. And I would even go as far to say is she seems very likely for the SAG. I think this will be a performance that the industry shows up for, even if nobody else comes out for it and she ends up missing the Oscar at the end. At least for me, this just comes down to how strong can a person's name be and how strong can a campaign be. Because she has the stats behind her. She has the studio push behind her. It's just the film doesn't seem to have the momentum. And it's the opposite for someone like Marianne Jean-Baptiste, who has the narrative and has the critical support behind her, but she doesn't have the industry support behind her, at least at this moment.
I suppose so, but the Golden Globes aren't industry. That's something we have to keep in mind here. They are not industry. They are industry adjacent. But to me, Saoirse Ronan, I do have Saoirse getting the nomination. I just think it's much lower down on the list. I could see her miss because, again, The Outrun. But I do agree she's in. I've also got Tilda Swinton for The Room Next Door. I feel like she's pretty solidly in. I also have Fernanda Torres. I'm Still Here fame. She's getting so much attention for this, and it's largely from Brazilian fans who are the most patriotic, the most supportive fans out there. Like, damn, Brazil, you guys show up for your movies. I'm Still Here is huge right now because Brazil is really showing up. Will that turn into an Oscar nomination at the end of the day? I'm still hesitant, but I do think that there's enough noise around her right now, and HFPA being what it is, Fernando Torres makes a lot of sense for a nomination here. And then as my final slot, I'm tossing up between Nicole Kidman and Kate Winslet. Old Globes, I would say Kate Winslet for Lee, 100%. But this is not the old Globes. And will they go for something like Lee? I am not sure about that. That doesn't fully make sense to me.
Nicole Kidman's such an interesting case this year for Baby Girl because, yes, she has the Volpe Cup, but I think this goes back to something last year, which, at least for me, is learning from my mistakes. The Volpe Cup does not automatically mean a path to Oscars because if you look at things in the grand scheme of things, what won the Venice top prize? The Golden Lion, The Room Next Door. If something else won the Golden Lion, Tilda Swinton would probably be the Volpe Cup recipient, just like last year of Poor Things and Emma Stone. And I think that Nicole Kidman will have a very similar path to Kaylee Spaney and Priscilla last year, just because in the grand scheme of things for A24, that film is their third, fourth, or even fifth priority. They are not doing FYCs for this movie whatsoever. Sure, I've heard some reports of very targeted ones in LA, but at large, especially for regional critics, they aren't getting people out there to see Nicole Kidman and Baby Girl. And I know this is not a regional critic prediction video, but I think this will be a sign for things to come throughout the rest of awards season. So currently she is my number 6, but if we look at some people who could overtake her spot, yes, there's Kate Winslet for Lee, but at least to me, I would lean elsewhere. I think Lee is that typical film we hear about every year that makes buzz online that ultimately goes nowhere. And I think the biggest sign for that was the fact that you saw Lee like a year and a half ago, and it took this long for the movie to come out. And the movie came out and got even less reception and even less notoriety than other films that we're already talking about with underseen narratives around them. So at least to me, if they were to go elsewhere for this last spot, Julianne Moore for The Room Next Door makes the most sense to me. She's in a film that we know they're going to see. She's a performer who has gotten nominated in the past, and her film is very international friendly. So she would be my alternative if I were to take out someone like Nicole Kidman or Fernando Torres. We're going to move over to Best Film Drama Actor now, and at least to me, this is returning to what the Globes seem like a lot this year. Strong top 4, 5, and 6, that's where the discussion starts. So this year, take your order: Coleman Domingo, Adrian Brody, Ray Fiennes, Timothy Chalamet. But now, Matt, who are your 5 and 6?
5 and 6 for me, I'm riding with Sebastian Stan and John David Washington. People are going to yell at me and they're going to say, Daniel Craig, Daniel Craig, Daniel Craig. But I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I've seen the movie. You've seen the movie just last night.
I did.
And what did you think?
He is the best part of the movie, but his performance comes off a lot more campy and funny than what the film around him was. And I just think that, yes, you can point back to this new Globes going out for Joaquin Phoenix and Beau Was Afraid. The issue there was it was funny performance and funny category that needed a 6 nomination. And if you look to the rest of the category, there was no number 6. This year, you have other people you could put into that 5 and 6 slot. So yes, maybe you think Sebastian Stan for The Apprentice, no one will touch that film. Well, guess what? John David Washington is there for The Piano Lesson. Netflix is getting this film seen. They are having him out there doing Q&As in a category of 6. I don't really see why he would miss, because your other alternatives would be Paul Mescal and Gladiator 2, which, I mean, is this Globes touching Gladiator 2? And then we get to people like Kingsley Ben-Adir for Bob Marley One Love, which I will respect you if you want to predict that, but at least for me, I will play it safer with someone who is out there, with someone who is buzzy, and with someone who is the talk of the town right now, being Sebastian Stan.
Again, I'll say old Globes would go Kingsley Ben-Adir. New Globes, I would lean more to something like Cillian Murphy in Small Things Like These, or the mostly not on screen Ethan Harisi in Nickel Boys. Those two could be weird Globesy picks, right? That feels like a weird Globesy pick to me. Ethan Harisi, they like Nickel Boys. Here you go, he comes along with it. Cillian Murphy, he could ride off the coattails of last year, and a very strong, very international film. It's an Irish production, and that could easily make it in. I would honestly probably see Cillian Murphy for small things like these before I see Daniel Craig.
That's going to move us over to Best Film Comedy Musical Actress, and at least for me, and this is going to sound crazy with who I have at number 6. I feel great about my top 6. I think that most people can collectively agree on the top 3 being Mikey Madsen for Anora, Carlos Sofia Gascon for Amelia Perez, and Cynthia Erivo for Wicked. Pick your order there. But Matt, who is your 4, 5, 6 before I say who I have at number 6?
I would actually say top 5 is locked in this category because in addition to Madison, Gascon, and Erivo, top 3, I would say Demi Moore and Zendaya are both lockety-locked. They're happening here. It makes so much sense. Their movies seem very Globes core. They seem very like something that the Globes would do, even though I don't have the substance making picture. Demi Moore makes so much sense here. My number 6, I'm a little bit hesitant with, but I have to go for a lack of other options with June Squibb for Thelma.
And on the other hand, I have Emma Stone for Kinds of Kindness. And that's the main reason why I was considering that film in the Best Picture musical comedy. It's just with substance, with challengers both going over to that category. It's like, where is the space to fit this movie in? Because a spoiler alert for the next category, I have this getting 2 nominations at the Globes, and I just feel like she is more likely than someone like Amy Adams for Night Bitch, who currently on both Awards Expert and Gold Derby is in the projected 6. That's now going to move us over to the flip side of this for a comedy musical actor, and for me, you brought up a point earlier. We can't disagree about Glenn Powell being number 1. I have Jesse Eisenberg for A Real Pain as my number 1 currently. But I would have them both getting nominated in addition to Jesse Plemons and Michael Keaton. I feel like all 4 of these men feel pretty safe, pretty secure for the nomination. And again, the 5, 6 is where stuff kind of opens up for me.
I disagree with Michael Keaton. Again, this Globes doesn't feel like they're going to go for something populist in that way. This is a different Globes body. Maybe old Globes would have gone for Michael Keaton. I'm not buying new Globes. New Globes who did Joaquin Phoenix and Beau is Afraid last year. That doesn't feel like the Globes that would do Michael Keaton. So I'm going to just challenge you there and say I don't think he's safe. In fact, I don't even have him in my top 10 at this point. I don't buy Michael Keaton, especially seeing the movie. Finally, I watched Beetlejuice. Terrible. Hated it. Yeah, I know. I love the first one, and this was such a pale imitation. I would say there's 4 here that I feel are safe. And it's Glenn Powell, Jesse Eisenberg, Jesse Plemons, Josh O'Connor.
Is O'Connor going lead? Because everything I've seen is he is supporting.
It's the Globes, man. They won't stand for fraud. They won't stand for fraud.
You're completely true. Usually, though, they do say ahead of time. Like I remember when Maria Bakalova went lead, they said that she was going lead. But if he is considered for lead, I would immediately throw him up into a potential win contender as well for me. But that's the reason why I have Michael Keaton in here, is just looking at the list of potential candidates, at least going off of Gold Derby, because I know Awards Expert, you can kind of put anyone in there. There's no one really jumping out the page to me. Like, am I going to throw in Robbie Williams for Better Man? Am I going to throw in Jason Schwartzman for Between the Temples? There's people out there predicting LaBelle for Saturday Night or Ryan Reynolds for Deadpool and Wolverine, but that's why I have for my last 2 spots. And yes, you can call this hope dicting, but I think if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be the Globes, and it's Phoenix for Joker Folie à Deux, and it's Sebastian Stan for A Different Man.
Sebastian Stan, Different Man, yes. I think Sebastian Stan gets double nominated. Why would the Globes go for Joker? What I see is something toxic, something that's seen as a massive bomb. I just can't see. I mean, I would give him a slight chance at a nomination, but I would say more likely I could honestly see another maligned musical make it in. George McKay for The End. I could see him make it over Joaquin Phoenix. Or if we want to go for a horror film, Hugh Grant, Heretic, could definitely be a contender here. Ultimately, I am out of just safety, which feels wrong because Saturday Night feels so unsafe, but I have Gabriel LaBelle as my number 6.
Jump over to supporting actress, where to me, honestly, there's a top 2 and everyone else is pretty up in the air, at least at the Golden Globes. Saldana, Grande, they're in. Everyone else,
Yeah.
I could see reasons for them being in. I can see reasons for them being out.
Jones is in at the Globes. I know you're hesitant about Jones. If Jones misses anywhere, it's SAG. She's not missing Globes. Anyways, though, I think we could both agree Selena Gomez is happening here.
Yes, Gomez is currently my number 4 behind Isabella Rossellini for Conclave.
I also have Isabella Rossellini, and finishing my 6 off, I've got Danielle Deadwyler. So I feel pretty solid about my top 6. Saldana, Grande, Jones, Gomez, Rossellini, Deadwyler. Now, you don't have Jones, so who is in yours?
That's my issue, is I can't figure out who I want to have at 6. Obviously, I know everyone's shouting, put Jones, put Jones, put Jones. I'm not going to cave on that. And Ronan, I don't think she'll be double nominated. I think Blitz is so dead, and I think the reception to it just this last week continues to just shows that this film is just going to do nothing in the grand scheme of award season. So currently, I am looking at 4 people as my potential last slot here. 2 of them are more populist, which probably don't fit in with modern Globes, while 2 of them skew more towards what this new Globe seems to want to vote for. So Monica Barbaro for A Complete Unknown, Margaret Qualley for The Substance, Ingenue Ellis-Taylor for Nickel Boys.
Okay, supporting actor, though. This is another category that I feel like we've got a solid top few, and then it's just a shit show of who gets in where, who knows. Right now, I feel like we can agree Clarence Macklin, Kieran Culkin, Guy Pearce, they're all safe, right?
Yes, I would put Denzel in the safe category as well. I know there's been some commotion online for the last few days. I still think he'll be fine. I think it's early enough into the season where he is just going to get in here just because it's that big of a performance. I mean, I get Denzel's not in the win conversation, but I mean, the Globes did do Angela Bassett just a few years ago.
But again, the Globes has changed so much since then. And is the Globes that we saw last year going to do Denzel Washington? Would they have done Angela Bassett? I don't know for sure. To me, I feel like they are going to be Gladiator 2 averse in every category, right? They didn't do anything for Napoleon last year, did they?
Well, I would say that's 2 completely different things. Gladiator 2 is in a much better spot than what Napoleon was at last year.
I don't have Denzel in. I've got him nearby. I don't have him in. Finishing off my top 6, I'm going with a double Honora nomination here with Yuri Borisov and Mark Edelstein. And then I'm going with Edward Norton. So that's my top 6. I am not sure about those final 3, right? Borisov, Edelstein, Norton, I don't know. I could see Tucci go in. I could see Washington, like you're saying. I could see Jeremy Strong for The Apprentice even popping in there. But top 3 I'm good with.
And I mean, just to throw out some other names as well. If Josh O'Connor is supporting for challengers, I could see him potentially popping up here. That would mean the Globes would really have to love challengers. And then I guess to throw out some funny meme ones, because I mean, the Globes aren't adverse to this. I know this is more old Globes than new Globes. Jonathan Bailey for Wicked. If the Wicked Hive is that real, if Chu could potentially get in for director, I could see Bailey maybe popping up for supporting actor. But my 5 and 6 in the category are Edward Norton for A Complete Unknown and Yuri Borisov for Honora. I feel weird having Borisov at every precursor at this moment, but it's kind of weird to predict someone to specifically miss here when you still have them getting in for the Oscars, unless that voting base is so adverse to that film. I don't think he's going to be nominated at CCA, at BAFTA, at Golden Globe, at all the industry precursors, but I don't want to predict the wrong one for him to miss.
I've had so many bad calls this season. I've had so many bad calls, and I'm just reveling in the fact that I saw Honora and instantly went, Yuri Borisov could be a thing. That makes me happy. I have to ride the good, because I have called so many bad things this year. Oh my God.
First one we're going to have is animated feature, and at least for me, I feel good about this 6. Robot, Inside Out 2, Flow, Snail, Wallace and Gromit, Moana 2.
5 of those, yes. But why would they go for Moana 2? When it's not highbrow, it's not being liked by people outside of you. Yes, it has insane box office. Save it for the cinematic box office category. The Globes, even before they were cool Globes, were doing shit like My Sunny Maud, right? They were doing random weird nominations. I would say Moana 2, scratch that. Put in something like Chicken for Linda. Put in something like Mars Express or The Glass Worker. Those are films that feel quintessentially Globesy. I guess you could argue that Memoir of a Snail and Flow are already there, right? They're already filling that sort of international, independent animation slot. But I gotta go for Chicken for Linda.
At least for me, yes, you can say one of these examples is Old Globes of Frozen 2, but I mean, last year they did do Wish.
Did they?
Yes.
Wow.
I think that if Wish can do it last year, sorry, I guess I should make a correction. They did not do it for song. They just did it for animated feature. But I think that Moana 2 is just big enough without huge support for another film. I think the point you made about Flow, the point you made about Snail, that is the representation for these more indie, these more international skewing films. Then we have Wallace and Gromit as well. It's over half the lineup going to be non-American productions. Very well could be, but at least for me, Moana 2 feels like the Globes are just going to show up for it. CCA will show up for it, but then when we get to other places, it falls off a cliff.
So let's talk the international film category. This is one that I feel like is going to be quite predictable. It's going to fall into exactly how this category from a distance should go. So right now, I feel like we can say there are 4 locks here. It's Emilia Perez, All We Imagine Is Light, The Seed of the Sacred Fig, I'm Still Here. Those are all in, no matter what you think the category is. Those are in. Some people would say Flow. I know you're going to have Flow in there. I just can't rationalize predicting a film with no dialogue in a category called Best Non-English Language Feature. Feels a little bit weird to put a no talking movie there.
There are meows.
I'm striking that. But that's not like I'm striking that. I'm taking that off the list. To me, the 2 that feel the most Globesy, which in my mind, I look at things that aren't going to go on to the Oscar, that are eligible for the Oscar, will be shortlisted, will likely get this and the Critics' Choice, and then get snubbed at the end of the day. And to me, that's Kneecap, and that's The Girl with the Needle. I'm not predicting either of those for the Oscar nomination, but I'm absolutely predicting both of them here.
And I would agree with you for those 2 being in the conversation. Kneecap is the one I currently have out for The Girl with the Needle, but I could totally see Kneecap having representation here, kind of like what you're talking about before, maybe even surprising in some other categories as well. And then the other one I think I could see is Italy's submission for the Oscars, Vermilio. I think this one has a lot of buzz, but for me, this one seems more like the film that gets the Oscar that misses the precursors, other than being the film that gets in everywhere on the precursor trail.
All right, let's talk score. With this category, I'm feeling like there's 3 or 4 safe ones. Conclave, Emilia Perez, Challengers, The Brutalist. Those feel pretty good. But then from there, what do? I'm leaning Saturday Night. I'm leaning The Room Next Door. I could see The Wild Robot, but I'm not sure about this category yet.
At least for me, the Globes always seem to have the best taste of all of the award shows when it comes to score. They will go out for scores no one else does just because they like the way it sounds. I think back to something like Motherless Brooklyn that got no other nominations anywhere but got in for score at the Globes. And at least this year, I don't really know what score that would be, at least jumping off the page to me.
Chapter 1.
It could be Horizon Chapter 1. That is a great score. I just don't know if that's on the radar whatsoever. At least Motherless Brooklyn was doing a festival type run, even if that movie was worse than Horizon was. But at least for me, I think the Globes would do Dune Part 2. I know that's not eligible for the Oscars,
True.
But Globes, they would still give it the nomination. And who knows, they may even give it the win.
I don't know about that. Once again, I come back to my point all year long of why would you award something that's doing the exact same thing as the first movie? And I say that from the perspective of I prefer the Dune Part 2 score to the Dune Part 1 score, but they've already given it that prize a few years ago, so why would they do it again? I could see it get the nomination, though. You are right. I'm going to hold off on it because I don't think Dune's going to get score nominations, but outside of Critics' Choice, that is. Ooh, you make a compelling argument, though.
And I guess my 6th would be The Room Next Door as well. I think that is the kind of fits into that score that maybe you don't love the film. I currently don't have it in for best film, but it's a score that I think even the naysayers of that film still come out saying, hey, that was really good work. And it's catchy too.
Yeah, it is really, really good work. Also, to back up Horizon Part One, it did get an it did get an HMMA nomination, which shows that they are sending out
Oh yeah.
screeners for it. They are trying to get score nominations for it. So who knows? Maybe Warner Bros. Does that. That's not very Globesy. It's not very Globesy at all. But
I mean,
maybe.
it's old Globesy. I don't know
It's
about new
old
Globesy.
Globesy. Yeah, new Globes might not do Horizon. Old
And
Globes, we'd have to be considering it for like actor and picture and shit.
I mean, I guess just looking at some other potential ones out there, I don't buy the Wild Robot for score or song whatsoever at the Oscars. The Globes, though, maybe. But
Yeah.
again, like, I get there's love online for the score, but I think that's all online. Like, I don't think that's really going to translate to the industry for both of those nominations for Wild Robot. But I guess for me, the other one I would really be looking out for, you kind of already mentioned it, would be Saturday Night. It's just, I have it underperforming so much. It would be weird if it would be a sole score nominee on my side, but I guess that kind of fits into my point before. They will go out for scores if the scores are good.
Hear me out. Hear me out. Hear me out. Flow, 3 nominations.
Oh yeah, Flow's score.
Animation, international, score, bam, Flow, baby.
I like it.
No,
I like it.
I'm not predicting that, but that would be real cool. And let's skip over to song, where I've got 2 Amelia Perez, El Mal,
Yes.
Mi Camino. I'm going to go piece by piece. I feel like that is solid. Those are the 3 that I feel good about. Dropping Diane Warren. Don't think that needs to happen at the Globes. That can miss everywhere and still make it in to the Oscars at the end of the day. So I'm going to go Harper and Will Go West from Will and Harper. Compress Repress from Challengers to complete my Challengers massive nomination haul here. And then last thing, I'm torn between Forbidden Road from Better Man, Winter's Coat from Blitz, or a song from Mufasa, which we don't know about yet because it's not out yet.
And this is where I kind of get to more with some of my predictions because at least looking at previous Best Original Song categories, they kind of do what you expect them to do. Like looking to last year, they did Road to Freedom from Rustin. They had a little fun with Peaches, and they did a random Bruce Springsteen song in addition to the 3 Barbie nominations. The year before, they did Taylor Swift. The year before that, they went with Jennifer Hudson for a song for Respect. So at least for me, what I'm seeing is they like their pop stars. And there is a pop star who has a song out from a movie this year that no one likes. So fully adieu, get your second nomination. Come in here for Best Original Song.
But there's a vast difference between Folie à Deux and like the Super Mario Brothers movie. There's that song's not Peaches. That song's not Jennifer Hudson in Respect. That's not. It doesn't compute.
I do have Moana 2 getting in here for song. I think the song in the film is doing enough. It is the highlight of the movie. They are campaigning the song. They have the screenwriters or they have the songwriters out there doing FYC events. So I feel like this can be another instance of, hey, Moana 2 shows up the early parts of the season, very similar to Frozen 2. But by the time we get to the Oscars, it kind of dies off. So that's currently my number 4.
Is that Beyond, or is that Can I Get a Chihu?
Beyond would be the one I would push.
Okay, I haven't seen the movie yet, so I don't know what the songs are. Maybe this week. Okay, here's a question. We've seen Ain't No Love in Oklahoma did very well at the Grammys with, I think, 1 or 2 nominations there. Do you think Ain't No Love in Oklahoma from Twisters could be that pop star song that gets in here, even though it's like Luke Bryan, not really a pop star, but a country star?
I mean, it could. It's just for
It's
me,
not
like
Globesy, though.
if they're going to go out for a pop star, what I've seen is they go out for the big ones, and like, again, not to throw Peaches in there. I'm more saying like the Bruce Springsteen of that year, the Taylor Swift of the year before. Then you go back to, like I said before, of the Taylor Swift again. But like they love their big pop stars even when the movies are not the best or on the campaign trail. So that's the reason why I do have Folie à Deux at my 6. I don't really buy it that much, but it makes more sense than trying to go out for other songs. And I do have Will and Harper Go West as my 5 with Mufasa missing out.
If you're going for that logic, I'd light bulb. If you're going for the logic, cut Lady Gaga. It's not Lady Gaga. That song doesn't exist. Not a real song. Go with The Last Showgirl.
Yeah.
Miley Cyrus. Last Showgirl. Anyways, box office. This is a category I know nothing about. It looks pretty thin. It looks pretty thin. There's 8 nominations in this one. Right now, I think we can pretty safely say Wicked, Dune Part 2, Inside Out 2, Deadpool and Wolverine, Gladiator 2. Those 5, they're safe, right?
Yeah, I would say they're pretty safe. At least looking at the Globe's eligibility, you need to make 100 million domestic, and at least looking at the box office this year, there's 20 movies as of December 3rd that have hit this mark. Obviously, Red One should eclipse it here soon, and then you look to later releases like Sonic, like Mufasa, maybe A Complete Unknown, maybe Nosferatu can eventually join the conversation, but still, if those films hit those numbers, I don't think they are going to be a part of this conversation. We saw last year, they didn't care for any movies that hadn't already released. Wonka missed on this nomination, which makes no sense for Wonka to miss out. So looking at those 20 films above, we get 8 that come in. I think you're right, Matt. Inside Out 2, Deadpool, Wolverine, those 2 are automatically in. We saw last year, they don't care about the movie's reception. If you made $1 billion, you're getting the nomination. And that's why I also want to put in Moana 2. For me, that 8 slot becomes to Moana 2, Despicable Me 4. Are they going with the movie that has the better reception, which is surprisingly Despicable Me 4? Or are they going to one that makes the more money, which is Moana 2? I would lean more so to Moana 2. So those 3 paired with Beetlejuice, Dune, Twisters, Wicked, Gladiator, that makes up my top 8. The biggest shocker I could see into this conversation, because they did show last year, it didn't need to just be the top grossing films of the year. I just did list the top 8 grossing films of the year so far would be The Wild Robot. This is a film that could have a lot of great reception. It does fit the title of box office achievement. It's going to be a great profit for Universal. It's just, what do you really take out? And currently my 8 would be Twisters. While it did make a lot of money, technically it barely profited for the studio. And I mean, they did nominate Mission Impossible last year, which was a financial loss, so they don't care about things like that. It's just like, I think we have 9 movies for 8 spots.
I have Wild Robot over Beetlejuice, partially because I think Beetlejuice is ass, and partially because if Inside Out 2 and Moana 2 are both getting nominated, and neither of those is a contender to win the animated category, why would The Wild Robot miss out when it's eligible and it's a stronger film than Inside Out 2 or Moana 2?
I guess my point there would go back to your argument about Flow maybe winning the category, but I guess here it doesn't really compute. It's just like, we don't really know what the Globes think about for this award yet. We've had 1 year of examples, and it will really come down to this year showing, do they value box office? Do they value good movie and money? Or are they just looking for the best movies that are in the financially eligible range?
Yeah. I think ultimately what I would fall to is if Wild Robot's out of this, Inside Out 2 and Moana 2 are there, then that locks it up for me. Flow is winning. But if Wild Robot is in box office as well as Inside Out 2 and Moana 2, then I think animated is still competitive. I would just feel like it's a significant sign of weakness in the Wild Robot if it were to miss the box office category.
Well, that is going to bring a conclusion to our Golden Globes predictions. These went on a lot longer than we thought, so we'll see what the final runtime is here. But if you made it this far in the video, let us know your bold Globes predictions down below. We'll see who ends up scoring more between Matt and I next week on our Globes reaction video on Monday, so you'll definitely want to come back then. But until next time, my name's Dyl.
And my name's Matt, and this has been Fantasy Filmball.